Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. A movie audiobook. Chapter 1. The Nightmares Begin. The Walsh family had moved into the old Victorian house on Elm Street with high hopes. It was a picturesque suburban neighborhood, and their new home was charming, with its weathered wooden facade and white picket fence. The sun-kissed afternoon seemed to promise a peaceful, new beginning for them. But little did they know that Elm Street bore a chilling history, one that would soon invade their lives. As the sun dipped below the horizon on that fateful evening, the house transformed from an idyllic dream into an unsettling enigma. Jesse Walsh, the teenage son, was the first to notice the shift. He had retired to his room, unpacking boxes and trying to make the unfamiliar surroundings feel like home. The house creaked and groaned as if it held secrets in its walls, and the gentle rustling of the leaves outside became an eerie whisper. That night, Jesse was plagued by the first of what would become a series of unrelenting nightmares. He found himself standing in the dimly lit, fog-shrouded corridors of an unfamiliar factory. The air was heavy with an ominous tension, and the harsh metallic clangs and eerie echoes of footsteps haunted him. He heard whispers, whispers that seemed to crawl from the shadows. And then he saw him, or rather, the nightmare that had terrorized Elm Street for years. Freddy Krueger, the man, with a face distorted by grotesque burns and a fedora casting a sinister shadow over his eyes, emerged from the darkness. His razor-sharp glove glinted ominously. A sadistic grin etched onto his face. He extended his gloved fingers towards Jesse, the metal scraping against the factory walls with a nerve-wracking screech. In a cold sweat, Jesse woke up with a jolt. His heart pounded in his chest, and he gasped for air as if emerging from the clutches of death itself. The room was dark, bathed in the eerie light of a street lamp outside. He could still feel the echoes of the nightmare. His hair matted with sweat, and he wiped his clammy brow. The nightmare had been vivid and terrifying, too lifelike to be dismissed as mere nocturnal imagination. Jess's mind raced as he tried to shake off the haunting images, to assure himself that it was just a dream, a consequence of the stress of moving to a new place. But it wasn't just the content of the dream that unnerved him. It was the feeling that lingered even in wakefulness. A foreboding sense that something was terribly wrong, not only with the house, but with Elm Street itself. The history of the place he knew so little about seemed to claw at him, inviting him into a web of darkness. And so began the relentless torment that would soon engulf Jess's life, a series of nightmares that would push him to the brink of terror, drawing him deeper into the abyss of Elm Street's sinister secrets. As the nights wore on, his nightmares would become more vivid, more relentless, and he would find himself spiraling into a waking nightmare from which there was no escape. Chapter 2. Freddy's Return. The nights in the Walsh household had grown increasingly restless as Jess's nightmares intensified. Each night brought a new vision of horror, like windows into a twisted dimension. His nights became a descent into terror, a relentless plunge into a realm of fear from which he could not escape. The nights grew colder, the moonlight casting eerie shadows on his room as he lay awake, dreading the moment he would succumb to sleep. One particularly chilling night, Jesse's dreams pulled him into a hellish world. He found himself standing within the ruins of an abandoned factory, the same factory that had appeared in his earlier nightmares. This time, it was different. The place seemed tangible, as if he had been transported there. The floor was littered with debris, and a cold, damp mist swirled around him. In the distance, Jesse could hear the sounds of grinding metal and echoing footsteps. He knew that he was not alone. The realization sent shivers down his spine, for he knew that the dream's sinister architect was near. And then, from the shadows, emerged Freddy Krueger, his gruesome figure materializing like a specter. Freddy's clawed glove gleamed menacingly, and his burnt visage was etched with wicked delight. The sinister murderer's laugh was a nightmare in itself, a bone-chilling sound that seemed to resonate in the very recesses of Jess's soul. The nightmare had become a waking horror. With every step Freddy took, the factory seemed to close in on Jesse. He could feel the walls pressing against him, the dank air choking him. There was no escape. Freddy's sadistic grin stretched impossibly wide, his voice dripping with malice as he taunted. "You can't escape me, Jesse! I'm always here!" Panic overtook Jesse as he scrambled to flee, his footsteps echoing through the desolate factory. But no matter how far or fast he ran, Freddy was always one step behind. The relentless pursuit continued, each corner of the factory becoming a new nightmare, every twist and turn an avenue of dread. And then, in a surreal twist, the dream began to bleed into reality. The boundary between the dream world and the waking world blurred, and Jesse felt an otherworldly force gripping his body. He struggled against an invisible hold as his surroundings morphed, his room and the factory merging into one bewildering realm. Suddenly, he awoke in his room, but something was terribly wrong. Freddy Krueger, once confined to the realm of dreams, stood before him, tangible and terrifying. He had transcended the barrier between the two worlds, now in control of Jesse's body. Freddy's malevolent laughter filled the room as he reveled in his newfound power. Jesse was trapped in a waking nightmare, possessed by the very demon that had tormented him in his sleep. Freddy was no longer bound by the dream world, and Elm Street had become a playground for his sadistic desires. The line between reality and nightmare had blurred, and the nightmare was no longer confined to the darkness of Jesse's dreams. It had become all too real, and the terror was only beginning. Chapter 3: Unexplained Murders. As Freddy Krueger's malevolent presence infiltrated the waking world through Jesse's body, Elm Street began to witness a series of gruesome murders, the likes of which had never been seen before. Panic spread through the once peaceful neighborhood, a sense of dread casting a long dark shadow over the community. The news of the killings sent shockwaves through the town, igniting fear and suspicion. The victims, all seemingly unrelated, had met gruesome ends, their lifeless bodies found in disturbing states. The local police, baffled and overwhelmed, struggled to connect the dots between these seemingly random acts of violence. The first victim, a local teacher known for her kindness and dedication, was discovered in her home, her lifeless body bearing grotesque, deep lacerations. The second, a middle-aged businessman, met a similarly brutal end. Each murder was more gruesome than the last, and the town began to feel as though it was trapped in a nightmare from which there was no waking. Whispers and rumors began to circulate throughout Elm Street, attributing the murders to a malevolent presence. Some believed it was the house itself, cursed by the dark legacy of its previous occupant, Freddy Krueger. Others spoke of the Elm Street children, plagued by shared nightmares that seemed to blur the lines between dreams and reality. Jesse's family was thrust into the center of this nightmare. His parents, tormented by the changes in their son, were unaware of the sinister force that had taken hold of him. They could only watch helplessly as he became increasingly erratic, his actions becoming more bizarre and unpredictable. Jesse, during these episodes, would wake up in unfamiliar places, covered in blood and sweat, with no memory of the horrors he had unleashed. He was both a victim and a perpetrator, a pawn in Freddy's dark game. But as the evidence mounted, it became clear that Jesse was not entirely responsible for these heinous acts. The police investigation deepened, and the community's fear grew. A curfew was imposed, parents kept their children indoors, and whispers of a malevolent spirit that could cross over from the dream world into reality echoed through Elm Street. The truth remained elusive, shrouded in the darkness of the nightmarish events that had unfolded. Jesse and his family were trapped in a nightmare they could not comprehend, while Elm Street became a place of terror where innocence had been shattered, and the line between dream and reality had blurred beyond recognition. The community was left to grapple with unexplained murders, the name of Freddy Krueger once again becoming synonymous with unspeakable horrors. The nightmare had taken root in Elm Street, and the question that haunted everyone's thoughts was, who would be the next victim of this relentless evil? Chapter 4: Lisa's Research. As Elm Street descended further into chaos and fear, Lisa, Jess's girlfriend, refused to be a passive observer in the nightmare that had engulfed her beloved. Determination fueled her actions, and she embarked on a mission to uncover the chilling origins of Freddy Krueger and to understand the horrors that now besieged her community. Lisa was a young woman of uncommon intellect and curiosity. Her determination to save Jesse led her down a dark and twisting path, one that would reveal the macabre secrets of Elm Street. She began her research by delving into the local history of the town. Lisa pored over old newspaper clippings, archives, and whispered legends that had long been buried. The deeper she dug, the clearer it became that Elm Street was cursed by a malevolent presence that had festered for generations. The tale of Freddy Krueger had always been more than a mere legend. It was a grim reality. Freddy was no ordinary child murderer. He had been a figure of terror in Elm Street, striking fear into the hearts of the community long before his reign of terror in the dream world. Elm Street had suffered for decades, unable to rid itself of the darkness that had taken root. Lisa discovered accounts of bizarre occurrences dating back to the time when Freddy was alive. Strange deaths, unexplained nightmares, and whispered stories of children who had vanished without a trace. Each tale carried a chilling common thread, the mark of Freddy Krueger, a figure so malevolent that his evil had lingered, haunting the place even after his death. With every passing day, the evidence mounted. Lisa's research led her to a series of unsettling photographs and documents, each pointing to a hidden truth. Elm Street had been plagued by darkness for generations, and Freddy Krueger had been at the heart of it all. It was as though the evil deeds of the past had cast a shadow over the present, and the malevolent spirit of Freddy had endured, refusing to be vanquished. Lisa uncovered a chilling photograph of a group of children, their faces filled with terror, their eyes haunted by unspeakable horrors. She recognized some of the faces adults in the community who had been children when Freddy had terrorized Elm Street. They had borne witness to the horrors, and now they too were suffering. It became evident that Freddy's evil had transcended the confines of the dream world. His sinister legacy had taken root in the very soil of Elm Street, and he was now able to cross over into the waking world, possessing the vulnerable souls of those who had fallen under his shadow. Lisa's research sent shivers down her spine, but she refused to be deterred. She was determined to save Jesse from the nightmare that held him captive. Armed with the knowledge of Elm Street's dark history, she set her sights on confronting the malevolent spirit that threatened to consume her beloved. Her mission had become a race against time, for the evil that now resided in Elm Street was not confined to dreams alone. The line between the dream world and reality had blurred beyond recognition, and Elm Street had become a place of unspeakable horror, where the sins of the past had come back to haunt the living. Lisa's quest for the truth was a beacon of hope in a town cast in darkness, and it was only the beginning of her journey into the heart of Elm Street's nightmares. Chapter 5: A Possessed Jesse. The grip of the malevolent spirit had tightened its hold on Jesse, turning his life into a relentless nightmare from which there was no respite. He had become a vessel for Freddy Krueger's dark desires, a pawn in the sinister game that now dominated Elm Street. Jess's days were filled with dread, and his nights were consumed by a horror he could not escape. The moments of peace and normalcy he had once known were now replaced by an overwhelming sense of helplessness. He could feel himself slipping away, his very identity being eroded by the malevolent presence that had infiltrated his soul. It was in these moments of torment that Jesse found solace in Lisa. She had become his anchor in the storm of madness that raged within him. With eyes filled with desperation and a voice quivering with fear, Jesse confided in her, sharing the horrors he was experiencing as he lost control of his own body. Lisa listened, her heart aching for the man she loved, who was being torn apart by a darkness beyond his understanding. She saw the torment in his eyes, the fear that seemed to haunt every waking moment. She knew that it was not Jesse who was responsible for the horrors that now plagued Elm Street, but the malevolent spirit that had taken possession of him. Determined to save Jesse from the clutches of Freddy Krueger, Lisa took his hand and vowed to stand by him. She reassured him that they would face the darkness together, that she would not abandon him in his time of need. Their love had become their greatest strength, a bond that could not be broken by the malevolent force that sought to tear them apart. But the path they had chosen was fraught with danger, and Lisa was aware of the perils that lay ahead. They had become warriors in a battle against a malevolent entity that transcended the boundaries of the dream world. The line between reality and nightmare had blurred, and they were standing at the epicenter of the nightmare that had engulfed Elm Street. With every passing day, Jess's torment grew more intense, and the malevolent spirit within him became increasingly powerful. He would awaken in unfamiliar places, disoriented and covered in blood, with no recollection of the horrors he had unleashed. Despite the chaos that surrounded them, Lisa remained resolute. She was determined to help Jesse, to exorcise the evil that had taken hold of him. Together, they would confront the darkness that threatened to consume their lives, armed with the knowledge of Elm Street's haunted history and the power of their love. As night descended upon Elm Street, Lisa and Jesse braced themselves for the battles that lay ahead. The nightmare had become their reality, and they were determined to face it head-on. The malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger had become a force to be reckoned with, but they were not about to surrender to the darkness that had taken hold of their lives. The battle for Elm Street had only just begun, and it would test their courage, their love, and their resilience in the face of unspeakable evil. Chapter 6: The Power of Love. Lisa's relentless pursuit of the truth had unveiled the chilling secrets that plagued Elm Street. Her research had exposed the malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger, a force that now threatened not only her community, but the life of her beloved Jesse. With each revelation, she felt the weight of responsibility growing heavier on her shoulders. But Lisa was not one to back down in the face of terror. She was determined to find a way to stop Freddy's reign of terror and save Jesse. Amidst the darkness that had descended upon Elm Street, Lisa stumbled upon an obscure piece of information, a glimmer of hope in a world shrouded in despair. It was a cryptic passage from an old journal, the author unknown. The passage spoke of an entity that was neither entirely of the dream world nor the waking world, an entity that could only be confronted with a force more powerful than its malevolence. As Lisa continued to piece together the puzzle, a realization began to crystallize in her mind. The power that could contain Freddy Krueger was not one of brute strength or supernatural might. It was the most enduring force of all, the power of love. Love was an emotion that transcended the boundaries of the dream world, a force that could pierce through the darkness and combat the malevolent spirit that had taken root in Elm Street. The love between Lisa and Jesse was a bond that had weathered the storms of the nightmare that had descended upon them. It was a love that had persisted even in the darkest of hours, a love that had defied the malevolent force that sought to tear them apart. And now, it was their greatest weapon. Lisa approached Jessie with her discovery, her eyes filled with determination. She believed that their love could be the key to ending Freddy's reign of terror. Jesse, who was still partially himself amidst the darkness that consumed him, listened with a glimmer of hope in his eyes. The idea that their love could be a force strong enough to combat the malevolent entity that had possessed him was a ray of light in the pitch-black night of Elm Street. Together, they embraced the notion of fighting back with the power of their love. They had become warriors in a battle against an evil that had plagued Elm Street for generations, and they were determined to break the cycle of terror. It was a daunting task, but their love had become a beacon of hope in a town cast in darkness. As they prepared for the battles that lay ahead, Lisa and Jesse understood that their journey would be fraught with danger. Freddy Krueger was a malevolent entity unlike any other, a force that had transcended the boundaries of the dream world. The line between reality and nightmare had blurred, and they stood at the epicenter of the horror that had engulfed Elm Street. But armed with the knowledge of Elm Street's haunted history and the power of their love, they were ready to face the nightmare head-on. Their love had become their most potent weapon, a force that could pierce through the darkness and combat the malevolent spirit that sought to tear them apart. As they took each other's hands, they were resolute in their mission to confront the nightmare that had consumed their lives, to end the reign of terror that had haunted Elm Street for far too long. With the power of love as their guide, they ventured further into the heart of Elm Street's horrors, ready to confront the malevolent spirit that had become their greatest adversary. The battle for Elm Street had only just begun, and it would test their courage, their love, and their resilience in the face of unspeakable evil. Chapter 7: The Showdown in the Dream World. Armed with the power of their love and an unyielding determination, Lisa and Jesse were ready to confront the malevolent spirit that had taken root in Elm Street. They knew that the battleground for their final showdown was the dream world, the realm where Freddy Krueger had reigned supreme for far too long. As they lay down to sleep, they focused their thoughts and emotions on the love that bound them together. In the darkness, their minds and hearts became a beacon, a light that pierced through the veil between dreams and reality. It was a love that transcended the boundaries of the dream world, a force that Freddy had underestimated. Their journey into the dream world was a descent into a nightmarish landscape, a place where reality had twisted into grotesque and surreal forms. The corridors of their shared dream were filled with distorted shapes, eerie shadows, and the echoes of their own fears. But Lisa and Jesse were not alone in their dream. Together, they faced the malevolent force that had held them captive, and they were armed with the power of their love. The dream world, while nightmarish, was not without its advantages. It was a realm where the rules of reality did not apply, and their love was a strength that could rival even Freddy's supernatural might. Their first encounter with Freddy in the dream world was chilling. He appeared before them, his grotesque form cloaked in shadows. His malevolent laughter echoed through the surreal landscape, a sound that sent shivers down their spines. But Lisa and Jesse did not waver. Their love had become a source of strength, a force that defied the darkness that sought to consume them. As they challenged Freddy on his own turf, they found that their love was a weapon unlike any other. It was a force that could pierce through the malevolent entity's defenses, a light that could dispel the shadows that had plagued Elm Street for far too long. They fought back with courage, their determination unwavering, and their love unyielding. The battle in the dream world was intense. Freddy tried to use their deepest fears against them, creating nightmarish scenarios that threatened to break their resolve. But Lisa and Jesse stood united, their love providing them with the strength to confront their fears and challenge the malevolent entity that had terrorized their lives. As the showdown in the dream world continued, it became evident that Freddy had underestimated the power of their love. The malevolent entity, once confident in his ability to manipulate and torment, now found himself facing adversaries who were not bound by the rules of the dream world. Lisa and Jess's love was a force that defied the very essence of his existence. With every step they took, every challenge they faced, Lisa and Jesse drew closer to the malevolent spirit that had plagued Elm Street for generations. Their love had become a weapon, a force that could combat the darkness that sought to consume their lives. The showdown in the dream world was a battle of courage and determination, a battle where love reigned supreme. The nightmare had become their reality, but they were determined to end the reign of terror that had haunted Elm Street for far too long. As they stood before Freddy in the dream world, their love was a beacon of hope, a force that could pierce through the darkness and combat the malevolent spirit that sought to tear them apart. The battle for Elm Street had reached its climax, and Lisa and Jesse were ready to confront the nightmare head-on, armed with the power of their love. Chapter 8: Facing the Demon. The battle in the dream world had intensified, and the malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger fought back with all the horrors he could conjure. His tactics were cunning, using their deepest fears as weapons against them. He twisted the very fabric of their dreams, unleashing nightmarish scenarios meant to break their resolve. But Lisa and Jesse, armed with the power of their love, would not be deterred. In the surreal landscape of the dream world, they confronted their deepest fears. For Lisa, it was the haunting memory of the friends and neighbors who had fallen victim to Freddy's reign of terror. She saw their faces, contorted in pain, their voices crying out for salvation. But she held fast to her love for Jesse, the one who now faced the malevolent entity that had brought so much suffering to Elm Street. Jesse's fear was more personal, a reflection of the darkness that had consumed him. He saw himself as a puppet, a pawn in Freddy's wicked game. But he, too, drew strength from the love that bound him to Lisa. Her unwavering support and the power of their love became a source of resilience, a force that could dispel the darkness that plagued them. As they faced the malevolent demon that had tormented their lives, Lisa and Jesse stood united, their determination unwavering. Their love for each other had become a powerful weapon, a force that defied the malevolent spirit's attempts to manipulate and torment them. Freddy tried to turn their own love against them, twisting it into something sinister. He conjured images of separation, of losing each other to the darkness. But Lisa and Jesse clung to their love as their anchor, their defiance against the malevolent entity that sought to tear them apart. The battle raged on, a clash of wills and emotions in the surreal landscape of the dream world. Freddy's malevolent laughter echoed through the nightmare, but Lisa and Jesse were undeterred. They confronted the demon with the power of their love, a force that could pierce through the malevolent spirit's defenses and challenge its very existence. In a climactic moment, Lisa and Jesse faced Freddy head-on. The malevolent entity, once confident in his reign of terror, found himself surrounded by a force more powerful than his evil. Lisa and Jess's love was a beacon of hope, a light that dispelled the shadows that had plagued Elm Street for far too long. The battle was intense, a struggle that transcended the dream world and reality itself. Freddy's malevolent presence waned as the power of love surged through the dream world, banishing the malevolent spirit back to the darkness from which it had emerged. As the nightmare came to an end, Lisa and Jesse awoke, finally free of Freddy's control. Their love had become a force of redemption, a power that could confront even the most malevolent of entities. They embraced, relieved and grateful that their love had prevailed, that they had banished the vengeful spirit that had tormented their lives. The nightmare that had plagued Elm Street for generations had come to an end, and Lisa and Jesse were the victors. The malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger had been banished, its reign of terror finally put to rest. The battle for Elm Street had been won, and it was their love, their unity, and their courage that had triumphed over the darkness. Chapter 9. The Nightmare Ends, for now. As the nightmare within the dream world came to a climactic conclusion, Freddy Krueger, the malevolent spirit that had terrorized Elm Street for so long, found himself temporarily banished. The force of Lisa and Jess's love had proven to be more potent than his evil, and it had pushed back the darkness that had plagued their lives. With a final, defiant act, Lisa and Jesse had faced the malevolent demon that had held them captive. Their love had pierced through the malevolent entity's defenses, its claws had been stripped of their power, and its vengeful presence had been banished back to the depths of the dream world from which it had emerged. As Lisa and Jesse awoke from the dream, they found themselves in the quiet sanctuary of their room. The sun's gentle rays filtered through the curtains, bathing the room in warm, golden light. The nightmare had lifted, and the malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger had been temporarily vanquished. Relief washed over them as they realized that they were finally free of Freddy's control. Jesse, who had been a pawn in the malevolent entity's wicked game, was now himself again, his identity no longer eroded by the darkness. He and Lisa embraced, their hearts filled with gratitude and love for each other. The nightmare had ended, and Elm Street was free from the horrors that had plagued it for generations. The malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger had been cast back into the dream world, its reign of terror temporarily put to rest. But as the light of day streamed through the window, a sense of foreboding lingered. Lisa and Jesse knew that the evil that had haunted Elm Street was not gone for good. The malevolent spirit had been banished, but it was not vanquished. Its legacy, the dark history of Elm Street, remained, casting a shadow over the neighborhood. As they clung to each other in the aftermath of the nightmare, Lisa and Jesse understood that their battle was not over. The nightmare may have ended for now, but the malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger was a force that could return, its malevolence undying. With determination in their hearts, they knew that they would remain vigilant, ready to face the darkness should it return. Their love had been their most potent weapon, a force that could challenge the malevolent entity that had tormented their lives. The nightmare had ended, but the battle for Elm Street was ongoing. Lisa and Jesse had faced the malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger and emerged victorious, but they were prepared for the battles that lay ahead. Their love, their courage, and their resilience would be their greatest strength as they continued to confront the darkness that had haunted their lives for far too long. As they held each other in the safety of their room, they looked to the future, prepared to face whatever challenges the malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger might bring. The nightmare may have ended for now, but the legacy of Elm Street's dark history would continue to haunt them, setting the stage for further battles in the future. Chapter 10. The Ongoing Battle. As the nightmare subsided and the malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger was temporarily vanquished, a sense of foreboding hung in the air. Elm Street, the quiet neighborhood that had been plagued by unspeakable horrors, was now shrouded in an eerie silence. The nightmare had ended, but it was clear that the evil was not gone for good. Lisa and Jesse, who had faced the malevolent entity head-on and emerged victorious, understood that their battle was far from over. The legacy of Elm Street and its dark history continued to cast a long shadow over the community, setting the stage for further battles in the future. The malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger was not a force that could be easily vanquished. Its evil was enduring, its malevolence undying. It had lurked in the shadows of Elm Street for generations, its sinister presence enduring long after its reign of terror in the dream world. The nightmare may have ended, but it was only a temporary respite from the darkness that had haunted Elm Street. The community, scarred by the unexplained murders and the terrors that had plagued their lives, remained on edge. The malevolent entity had not been destroyed. It had been pushed back into the dream world, biding its time, waiting for an opportunity to return. Elm Street was a place where the line between dream and reality had blurred beyond recognition, a place where the sins of the past had come back to haunt the living. As Lisa and Jesse looked to the future, they knew that they would remain vigilant, prepared for the battles that lay ahead. Their love had been their most potent weapon, a force that could challenge the malevolent entity and push back the darkness. But they also understood that the malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger was a cunning adversary, one that could return with even greater malevolence. The nightmare may have ended for now, but the legacy of Elm Street's dark history would continue to haunt them. The battle was ongoing, a relentless struggle against an evil that defied time and space. The community, once a peaceful neighborhood, had become a place of fear and foreboding. As Lisa and Jesse held each other, they were prepared for the challenges that the malevolent entity might bring. The nightmare may have ended, but the malevolent spirit of Freddy Krueger had not been defeated for good. Elm Street, with its dark history and the legacy of unspeakable horrors, remained a battleground where love, courage, and resilience would be their greatest strength. Hey there, fellow fiction enthusiasts. I hope you've been enjoying the audio stories on Muted Gamer Fiction as much as I've loved bringing them to you. Your support means the world to me, and today, I've got a small request for you. If you've been relishing these audiobooks and fan fiction tales, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, drop a comment, and, of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Your likes, comments, and subscriptions are like fuel to my storytelling fire, and they keep this channel going strong. I'd also love to hear from you. Whether you've got a particular fan fiction suggestion you're dying to share, or simply want to say hi, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. This channel is a community of like-minded fans, and your input is incredibly valuable. So, thank you once again for being a part of Muted Gamer Fiction. Keep those headphones on, immerse yourself in our stories, and let's continue this exciting journey together. Your support keeps the stories coming, and I can't wait to see what fan fiction ideas you have in mind. Happy listening, and remember to hit those like, comment, and subscribe buttons. See you in the next chapter.